History, it's not always kind. It holds within its stories of suffering, of cruelty, of dehumanization. Today, we delve into a dark chapter, the history of slavery. But there's one part of this story that most people don't know: the horrifying practice of slave zoos. Slavery as we know it began to take a horrific shape during the transatlantic slave trade, which spanned from the 16th to the 19th century. Millions of Africans were captured, forced onto ships, and transported across the Atlantic to the Americas. They were sold like commodities, stripped of their identities and their freedom. For those who survived the brutal journey known as the Middle Passage, the nightmare didn't end there. Upon arrival, they were sold into bondage, forced to work in grueling conditions on plantations, in mines, and as domestic servants. But there's another, less discussed chapter of this history: the existence of human zoos, an unsettling and grotesque practice where people, primarily from Africa and indigenous communities, were displayed like animals for public entertainment. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, human zoos became a popular attraction at world expositions and fairs. These events, people from colonized regions were put on display in villages or cages, where visitors could observe them like they would any exotic creature. Perhaps the most tragic story comes from Oda Benga, a Congolese man who was displayed in a cage at the Bronx Zoo. In New York in 1906, Benga, who had been taken from his home in Africa, was forced to live in this cage like an animal for the amusement of zoo-goers. He was eventually released, but the humiliation never left him. After enduring this cruelty, Benga tragically took his own life. These human zoos were not isolated events. They were a reflection of the deeply ingrained racism and colonialist mindset that existed at the time. People were not viewed as equals but as curiosities, as objects for entertainment. Though these human zoos were eventually outlawed, the legacy of slavery and dehumanization lives on. Today, we continue to battle against human trafficking, systemic racism, and the exploitation of vulnerable people. The history of slavery didn't just end, it evolved. We owe it to those who suffered and died to remember these chapters of history, to ensure that such atrocities are never forgotten, and to build a future where the dignity of every human being is respected. History may be written, but it's up to us to understand it fully, to confront its painful truths and work together to create a world where no one is ever dehumanized again. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.